Pork tenderloin is a great and easy way to go for the whole family. My mother-in-law, Marion Bowman, used to love this, and we'd cook it almost once a month, every Sunday when we went to dinner. I'm going to share the recipe with you. Let's get cooking with style. Pork tenderloin is absolutely fabulous, but there's one thing that you have to do if your butcher won't do it for you. You want to take the silver skin off, and this is just this little area right here, and it's kind of what separates the two pieces of muscle apart. And what you're going to do is you're just going to take your knife and slide it underneath like that and run it forward. And then you take that piece like that, and you keep the blade tilted up a little bit, and you take that off. There's two passes here. That's the first one, and here's the second one. Now, if you don't think you have the skill to do this, talk to your butcher at your grocery store, and they'll be able to do it for you, more than likely. Seasoning wise, this is super simple. We're just taking some kosher salt and give it a good healthy dose, all right? This is the seasoning there, and then we're gonna put a good coating of black pepper here. And we'll do both sides. And then the next step is we're gonna put it in the fry pan to give it a nice good sear. So I've preheated my pan and olive oil to about a medium-high heat. Make sure you roll all of the salt and pepper back onto the pork tenderloin, and you're gonna sear this. Now, I'm gonna have to turn on my fan because if I don't, it'll start to smoke and the smoke alarm will come on. But we're gonna do each side till it's a nice golden brown. I didn't mention this when I first put that in, but I've got a couple sprigs of fresh rosemary in there. That mixes in with the oil. Here's the turn, and see how we've got that nice brown? That's what we're looking for. We'll do one more turn on the other side. It's about 5 minutes aside. All right, we're last turn right now. There's that second side. We'll finish the other side, and in about 3 or 4 minutes, we'll be ready to get this to go in the oven. All right, we've got it all seared up nicely on all 3 sides. Now for the next step, I'm gonna save that pan because we're gonna saute our mushrooms in that. I want you to take your pork tenderloin and put it in some aluminum foil like this, okay? To this, now we're gonna use fresh herbs. If you don't have fresh herbs, or you just rather use some herbs that you have in your cabinet, you can use dried herbs, half of a teaspoon for each of these. So the herbs we've got are sage, thyme, parsley, and fresh basil. And I've got that rosemary that was in the pan with the oil. And I'm gonna put a little bit of butter on top of this, and we're gonna wrap this all up, and I'm gonna pop it in the oven. So I take my foil, bring it up on the sides like so, pinch off the back. We're trying to make a nice little envelope here, and then bring it over like that. Put this in my baking pan, preheat your oven, and pop it in. Now you remember I told you to hold on to that pan and not get rid of the drippings, just take the rosemary that was in there out. To the pan I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then we're gonna put in our cremini mushrooms. And we're gonna get these sauteing and give them a chance to soak up all the great ingredients. I'm gonna put in about a tablespoon, maybe a tablespoon and a half of garlic, a good pinch of kosher salt, and to that I'm going to add some fresh cracked pepper. Now we're going to cook the mushrooms, and they're going to start to open up and release their juices. At that point, we'll add a little bit of red wine, and when they reconstitute or pull that moisture back in, they'll pull the red wine in with them. So the mushrooms are ready to have the red wine added, which is an option. You don't have to do it. And to that, I'm also going to add some fresh sprigs of thyme. That'll help bring out the flavor in the mushrooms and the garlic and everything like that. And you can see how these have sweated down just a little bit. About maybe a half a cup of red wine. We'll let that cook down, and then we'll add a little bit of butter to it. All right, I want you to take a close look at this and see how we've reduced the liquid in here by about half. At this point, we're just gonna shut the heat off and set the mushrooms off to the side, adding the butter at the very end. You wanna take the pork tenderloin out and let it rest for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we'll warm the mushrooms back up and add our butter. So first off, let me just show you that butter, how I've just barely let it melt in the heat of the pan, and I want to swirl that around. The reason I do that is because it keeps it nice and creamy. At this point, you want to make sure you take out your thyme that you had in there, because you don't want that to be in the sauce that you put over the pork tenderloin. Let's bring this up here. And now be careful, you're going to have a bunch of juice in the bottom. We're going to use that. Let's get our beautiful herbs out of there that made this all possible. And we're going to slice this up. Now make sure you don't lose that juice. Look at all that beautiful juice in there. Isn't that great? Okay, set this off to the side. And then it's so simple here as far as carving this pork tenderloin up. We're just cutting across the grain like that. A little bit of an angle, not a lot, you know, just enough to kind of make it look a little bit fancy. And I'm using a rag here, or a towel I should say, it's not a rag, and using that to do two things. Hold the meat, as well as if it starts to run around, the juices that is, we don't have them going all over the place. Let's get this up on our plate, and make sure you warm your plate, okay, because you don't want to put hot food on a cold plate, as I always say. We'll make that look kind of nice, like so. Now let's take our mushrooms, and we've got that beautiful butter in there. I'm just going to put this around the outside so we have a nice sauce over the top of our pork tenderloin. And then we're going to make that like so. Now take this sauce that we have left over, and we're going to just drizzle that over the top, because that's going to add a lot of the beautiful flavors from all those herbs back in there. Dress that up just a little bit. Now boy, I'll tell you, you put that out, this pork tenderloin with the mushrooms on top, they're going to be beating their way to the table, and you're going to have to stand out of the way. If you'd like this recipe for a oven roasted pork tenderloin with cremini mushrooms, go to our website, cbsa.com/recipes. Enjoy.